Okay guys, this is a public service announcement, and this was emailed to me yesterday or the day before. I had a hard time getting into emails, but I finally got into them. And they sent this, and this is posted by Carrie Freedom. It's just Twitter. Wearing a mask is like putting a plastic bag over your face. The CO2 levels are off the charts. Watch. And I'll put a link to this in the description so you guys can check it out. But what I wanted to do is I'll look down here. There's a comment down here. I live in Texas. I saw a 30-plus couple on the bike trail yesterday wearing masks. The woman was on the ground hyperventilating, still wearing the mask. The unjustifiable fear is ridiculous. Well, let me put some of this into perspective for you guys. My wife is currently renting a hotel room because she was just put on quarantine. Like I said, I'm going to link this in the description so you guys can read this for yourself. But let's go through some stuff here. This is a study, a carbon dioxide exposure effects fact sheet. Studies by Neosh in 1976 dispelled the myth that carbon dioxide is an asphyxiant gas and only causes adverse health effects when it displaces oxygen. That is kind of a myth because carbon dioxide is in your body all the time anyway. Always. Symptoms of overexposure by inhalation. That's concentrated CO2. A lot of people asphyxiate. They'll like you see at the movies, they bury them underground and that they'll asphyxiate because they breathe all the oxygen, usable oxygen out of the air. Include dizziness, headache. The reason why I'm doing this is so you can watch for these things, and when you know these are happening, pull your mask off and breathe some oxygen. Even if you're in the store, pull it off your face and breathe. They'll get over it, trust me. Dizziness, headache. Hey, look, I'd rather do that than pass out and have them have to try to pick up my 300-pound self. JD Farrock just put out is doing a live stream right now, and it goes along with the video I just posted. Okay, dizziness, headache, nausea, rapid breathing, shortness of breath, deeper breathing. Anybody who has breathing issues already can attest to this. I did this today. I had to go to 2 different stores today, and I was like this. Increased heart rate. That's tachycardia. Eye and extremity twitching. Cardiac arrhythmia, memory disturbances, lack of concentration, visual and hearing disturbances, including photophobia, blurred vision, transient blindness, hearing loss and ringing in the ear, sweating, restlessness, vomiting, shaking, confused, flushed skin, panic, paresthesia, a sensation of numbness in the extremities, disorientation, convulsions, unconsciousness, coma, and death. If you've ever used a gas heater, all apartments and houses, if they use gas, have the CO2 detectors down at a certain level on the floor. We used to use that in our other place. We had actually a really awesome propane heater. We had to have a CO2 alarm in there so we'd know that if there was a problem to get out. One of the signs that there's not enough oxygen in your building, in the wintertime, your windows will have sweat on them. And we used to have it all the time. So what you do is you crack a window about 2 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches, so the air can circulate and flow. And it allows oxygen to displace the CO2 in the room. Because flame burns up oxygen. It can be a problem. And whole households have been found dead because of this. So let's start with 30% carbon dioxide with 70% oxygen. So technically, I don't know what it would be with a mask, but you might get close to that. The first 30 seconds can give you unconsciousness, with some subjects having seizures that were characterized as decerebrate, no cerebral functioning. That means the brain shut down. That's pretty bad. That's 30 seconds at 30% carbon dioxide. 17% to 30%, within 1 minute, loss of controlled and purposeful activity, unconsciousness, coma, convulsions, and death. That's pretty bad. That's real bad. 10% to 15%, dizziness, drowsiness, severe muscle twitching, unconsciousness, and death within a few minutes. They didn't give a time frame on that one. 7%, that's 70,000 parts per million, with a 20.9% oxygen. 5 minutes, death. Nice big box for one word. 6%, 1 to 2 minutes, hearing and visual disturbances. 5,000 parts per million with 20%. Now this is blood saturation. with 20.9% oxygen, headache, lethargy, mental slowness, emotional irritation, and sleep disturbances. 25,000 parts per million, less than 2.5 hours. Many individuals are rendered cognitively marginal or dysfunctional, which means you can't drive, sometimes can't even walk. 1,000 parts per million, less than 2.5 hours, impairs judgment, decision-making ability, and thinking skills on a short-term basis, even for healthy individuals. Even though oxygen is necessary to carry out cell functions, it is not the lack of oxygen that stimulates breathing. Breathing is stimulated by an excess of CO2. If an individual breathes too slowly, bradypnea, does not breathe deeply enough, dyspnea, or is exposed to excessive CO2 levels, too much CO2 can build up. This causes increased breathing and other psychological responses discussed above. Concentrated CO2 conditions impact most living organisms. Plant roots can actually be suffocated, which stops the uptake of nutrients and kills the plant. So that's why you see guys plow fields to unpack the soil, get oxygen down in there and get it moving. That's why you want your beneficial nematodes in soil. It gets things moving so the plants can actually breathe. So wearing a mask, the percentage can go up. Now these masks move, so the percentage is going to fluctuate. But keep this kind of stuff in mind. If you're wearing your mask and say you're in a store for a long period of time or in your job, and all of a sudden you start to have some of these things, and you start to realize that, like say you're doing your job and you're breathing through the mask and all of a sudden your fingers start to tingle. Just stop, pull the mask off, suck in some air, and then put it back on. Now the mask that I use has a little thing in the front, little valve. So when you breathe out, it lets the CO2 out. It doesn't keep it within the mask. A lot of these masks people are using breathe really good. It's just a piece of cloth. It doesn't really stop the virus because the virus can go right through that. But your higher end masks, if there's no transmission of air moving through there, you can put yourself in a pretty serious situation. So it's really important to pay attention to what we're doing here. Life with a mask doesn't have to be an issue if you take precautions and pay attention. It's not as simple as just throwing it on and walking. Some of the training we used to do in the Army is we would put our gas masks on, which are MOP 4, and it protects against everything. It's so depleting and cushioning that in order for people to understand you properly, they have a little speaker that screws into one side, and it speaks through that as an electronic speaker. We would train with the masks on just for saturation effect, so we would see what it was like if we're in a situation where we're under, say, a mustard gas attack. Get our gear on, get our mask on, and then we got to go and we got to engage in a firefight for some reason, because usually they'll do that and then they'll attack. Well, you got to go and get in a firefight. Well, you got to know what it is, so that way whenever you experience it again, you're not taken off guard and just collapse on the ground and give up and get killed. You got to be able to fight. You got to know how to pace yourself. So we would train with the masks on so we would know what it would feel like. And yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. Those things are designed for you to live in them. It's got a little tube, you pop out, put it on your canteen, and you can drink water out of it. It's got a little special straw in there. And you put it back on. It's built for you to live inside in these conditions. So I'm putting this PSA out because I want you guys to be prepared, and I want you guys to get caught off guard. If you're wearing a mask and you start to have some of these symptoms, stop what you're doing. Don't say, "Hey, I'm going to go out to the front. I'm going to go out to the outside for a minute." Stop what you're doing right where you're at. If you're in the back of a clothes store or shopping, stop what you're doing. Pull that mask away from your face and get some oxygen. Somebody comes up and gives you lip, turn around, look at them, and go, "Do you want to carry me out? Because I'm about to pass out. Get away from me." Just tell them off, and then they'll leave you alone. Anybody, they got any problem with that? Tell them you want to see the manager. So, yeah, and you got to go a little slower. I see people that they're in the gym wearing the masks, but what I saw is that the person helping them train would keep the mask on. They would take the mask off, do the exercises, and then put the mask back on. That's cool. But don't fall out or pass out and have to go to the hospital because of this. There's no reason for it. So use good judgment on these kinds of things. And like what I do, if I know I got to wear my mask, like I had to go to 2 stores today. When I know I got to wear my mask, I already have breathing problems from exposure to burn pits and depleted uranium out in Iraq. I have my mask. When I get to the front door of the store, I put my mask on. Go in the store. I know where I'm going, what I'm going to get. I go get it. I get out. As soon as I get outside, the mask comes off, so I can get that oxygen in. Because I know that if I wear that for an extended period of time, I'm going to start having these symptoms. And in some cases, even today, I had some of these symptoms wearing that mask in Home Depot because I was in there a little bit longer than I was planning on being in there, because I had to go and get different bolts and stuff for a cherry picker or engine hoist that I'm fixing. So make sure that you are using good judgment on this. Make sure you're paying attention so you don't get caught off guard by this, because the one thing you don't want to do, you don't want to get into a bad situation with this where you pass out and the people around you don't know about this stuff and leave you lay there with that CO2 saturation and let you get worse. If they know what they're doing, or if you know this stuff and somebody goes down, pull their mask off them real quick as you can. Somebody gives you grief, tell them get back, because you're trying to save that person's life, because 5 minutes, death. If it's that high, 70,000 parts per million, 5 minutes is death. Down here, you can have death in 1 minute, 17%. So the longer they lay there sucking in CO2, the worse it's going to get. So this way you know, this way you're prepared. And I'll link this in the description also, so you guys have this information and can make mental notes about this stuff. Not that you don't need to know the percentages, but you keep a close watch on if you run into a situation like this concerning you or someone else. You see somebody go down, pull the mask off. If they don't do it and nobody else does it, pull that mask off so they can get some oxygen, because that's most likely that's what their problem is. And we got to watch out for each other. The world doesn't know what's going on with these things. The world's not paying attention. They're just doing what they're told to do, like sheep. But if we pay attention, we don't struggle or suffer near as much as they do. All right, I love you guys, and I will see y'all in the next one.